who also happens to be chairman of the Board of Governors of the Institute. CIMP was established in 2008 as an autonomous institute on the lines of IIMs with the active support and help from Government of Bihar to resurrect the educational glory of Bihar. Recently, CIMP has secured a position in top 125 management institutes in the country under the NIRF ranking 2022 conducted by Ministry of Education, Government of India. Now let me introduce our chief guests for the day, Shri O.P. Singh Ji and Shri Amitesh Prakash Ji. Shri O.P. Singh Ji is currently the Senior Vice President at WNS. He also works as a Finance Controller at Apollo. During his 26 years of work experience, he worked with Davate, Hero ITS, DPL Limited, and ACC Limited. Besides these various achievements, he also happens to be a generous and a kind human being. Shri Amitesh Prakash Ji. Shri Amitesh Prakash Ji is a startup mentor and an angel investor. He is currently the Chief Investment Officer at Karakaba Ventures. He has also been a career insurance professional with 16 years of experience in the world. Besides these various achievements, he also happens to be a generous and a kind human being. Now, may I invite the honorable guest, O.P. Singh Ji, to deliver his address. So please enlighten us with your knowledge and experience.
Hi, thank you everyone. This is OP here. I call myself OP. My name is Om Prakash Singh. I think I'm audible.
Yeah, you are audible, OP Singh Ji, and I'll just interrupt you for a minute. On behalf of CIMP fraternity, we welcome you once again. I'm Professor Rajiv Verma. We haven't met earlier, but Ji informed me about your profile and the type of work, wonderful work that you're doing over there in the US. So I welcome you for this interaction, and there's a lot of to learn from you. I just now saw the brochure which Kumoji shared with me about the Cognify, and I was thrilled to see the type of business model that you're doing, and how the community funding that you're doing over here. So we are all looking forward to learn many things from you, and looking forward for your interaction. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's a delight to be here. It's a privilege to be in front of the honorable people. Thank you very much once again. I am based out of Houston in Texas. I am here in Houston since last 7 years. By profession, I'm a chartered accountant, and I hail from UP in Balia, and I'm very close to the people in UP Balia and all. And I have always tried to be something I can do for that part of the world. Patna is very closer by, it's not very far off. I have quite a few relatives in that particular region. So when I was given this opportunity to speak with you, it was a pleasure. I thought, let me take this honor and take it up. Without taking much of time, I would, if you are okay, I will share a small presentation which I have prepared for today's discussion. And the topic which was given to me is more around the domain of angel investment, VC funding, and for the early stage enterprises. So if it is okay, if I can share my desktop and take it forward from here. Just one moment. Give me a moment. I am trying to. Am I audible and visible? My desktop is visible, I believe.
Yes, visible.
So angel investment, VC funding for early stage enterprise. So let me tell you, beyond my career in WNS as well as my professional career, I have been into startup investment, and that is where we build up Cognify. I am CEO for Cognify, and we do startup investment. We started this as a individual investment vehicle, but eventually now we have almost 150 odd professionals all across the globe. And we particularly focus on the early stage entrepreneurs and startups for the funding part of it. Angel investment is a very important stage of every early stage enterprise and startup. funding enables the business. But before funding, what is important is everything hinges around the business part of it. We all evaluate the businesses before funding. And there's a process which we take it up for the purpose of evaluating that can we fund, can we not fund. And few of the specific things we look into: the business, the founders, their academics, where they've spent their life, their career, and are they willing to spend rest of their life in that particular space. And once we get a comfort, we certainly go ahead with the enterprise. We have been doing, as of yet, we have almost invested into 15 companies. We have strategically invested more than 10 companies, and we have enabled them to be part of the US geography also. So few of the fundamentals like I would like to touch upon, which is considered at the time of funding. And please pitch in, Amitesh, when you want to talk about it, because I just wanted to go with the flow if it is okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's your session at this point in time. After you're done, then only will I speak. So it's over to you.
Thank you. So on the early stage part of it, the most important part we look into is the business, why the enterprise is getting, and what is it they're trying to add value into, what is it they're going to create, what is it they're going to deliver, what is it they're harnessing as a value. And that is where the fundamentals applies. If we are convinced, we go with it. And every enterprise who is going to start up should have this clarity: what is it they're building up, what is the value addition they're going to build across, what is it they're going to create, what is the offering they are offering, and what is the value proposition part of it, what is the core value, who is the customer for whom they're building up. So if they are able to have this clarity, if they are able to have this vision that this is what they are going to build up, it excites us that let's participate with them, let's associate with them, let's enable their growth. As enterprise is looking for funding, we are also looking for a smart enterprise where we can fund. Let me tell you honestly. In our last couple of years of journey as a startup investor, though I have also built up a startup, but the phase of startup investment has evolved a lot. And we have always been looking for startup investors, startups, enterprises where we can see value, what is it they're going to create, how they are going to create, what is it they're going to harness as a value, and so on and so forth part. Certainly, we look into the fundamental: what is the team, what is their background, what is their academics, and we certainly encourage people from CIMP and rest of the management institutes to be part of that particular journey. We also step up into this process and try to identify if we can add value by way of helping them strategically. Strategically in the sense that what is their disruptive business model they're building up? What is their defensible technology? Are they continuously innovating into that particular setup? And is there global footprint or not for the particular go-to-market part? If you have your business model settled, if you have your technology settled, if you are on the continuous innovation path, and if you have a go-to-market established, then it's something which excites us that yes, we can go for it. And business has been evolving. We enable that at the time of visualizing the business. Is the business having customer focus? Is the deep-rooted analytics in place? Is the solutions in place, what they're going to build up, and so forth. The delight for us is always the deep tech part of it. If the business is in the deep tech space, if the business is the AI/ML space, that's most preferred space wherein we associate with that particular founder and invest into it. I will take few minutes to talk about the business model also, because that's the fundamental. And beyond the business model, the companies, you see, the important thing which I'm trying to bring out is that in the ecosystem, technology is very easily replicated. But the business model, the culture, you cannot replicate. The go-to-market, you cannot replicate. And that's the most important part of it. If you are innovative enough, if you have a firm hold on the customer part of it, you cannot penetrate. You cannot touch that market. And let me give you a classic example. Everyone knows about three big deep tech companies or high tech companies: Apple, Google, Microsoft. These are the big names. Everyone is aware of it. I don't need to bring a notice of what is it they're doing, what is it they're not. But they are all having success story only because of their disruptive business model, what they're operating. They are all deep tech into technology. They're cutthroat technology. No one can compete with Google. No one can compete with Apple. No one can compete with Microsoft. But still, all of them are trillion-dollar economy, and they are already adding significant value. And what is it differentiating each of them? Each of them is operating in a different, same space, same technology, but the business model is different. Where Apple focuses upon the hardware, software, and integrated embedded offerings, focused on the premium segment part of it. Microsoft, which is more into the license, technology, operating system, targeting the enterprise segment. Google, with its disruptive technology, a differentiated business model targeting the retail audience. And they're all individually cutthroat, competing each other because they are having a different go-to market for each segment part. And I will take a few minutes to define what is the business model and why, if you focus upon the core, your fundings and everything will follow. You need to identify if you are a process-based company or a product-based company. Again, when I am talking about process or product-based company, everyone knows about Amazon. They have multiple products. They have multiple products to be purchased. But what is core about Amazon is the process, and the number of IPs they have, their process is only differentiating Amazon with the rest of the world. You need to focus upon the core capability, which is the core differentiator. And this is for the every enterprise who is looking for the funding. And that's going to make the difference. And that is what we are looking for. What is it they're focusing upon? Is an individual product-driven company or process-driven company? Is they focusing upon the software or the service part? Are they focusing on the content or the data? Google has offered everything free. The Google search engine is free. The Google map is free. YouTube is free. But they have a different model. Out of the free, their focus is all about the advertising part. The way they have changed the advertising ecosystem has defined their business model. And they are a trillion-dollar company. I'm just trying to give you examples. This can be bigger names. I'm just talking about the bigger names so that you can relate to it. I can always talk about the smaller names which we have funded and so and so forth part of it. But what I'm trying to allude is that for every enterprise, every startup who is looking for funding, if they have addressed the business model, that helps us to define that, yes, we can invest in. Any question? I will pause for a moment. Any questions so far from the audience? I would like to understand if there's a question.
So the format is, you can please proceed with the content and then towards the end we will ask.
Okay, absolutely fine with me. So as I am telling you, the important thing we have to look into is that the core capability part of it. If the core, if the value proposition is defined well enough, we pick it up from there and we start evaluating that particular company for the purpose of funding part. Moving on from the point of angel fund versus VC, the startups are a ecosystem where VC don't come into play. Let me tell you honestly. Recently, we came across a very good startup, which is in Bay Area. They are from India. They are working on a security space, data security space. and a phenomenal business model. A 6-time entrepreneur, he has already sold off 5 companies, and this is 6th company which is building up. And he's trying to scout for money in the VC space in US, but he has got no revenue. He is not able to get any funding in the VC space product. And that's where the angel funds comes into play. And I can talk about the angel fund also. Why? Because they believe in the startup, they believe in the enterprise, they believe in the mentoring. There's a lot of effort which goes by the angel fund in the mentoring, in enabling the funding support, defining the business strategy. And that is something which VCs don't want to put in their time. So we, as a startup, we have to define that should we target a VC or should we target an angel fund? And that's very important, very critical. If they are into the market, they have their businesses defined, they have defined their segments, we will certainly help them in mentoring, in enabling the network, enabling the funding support, branding, defining the go-to-market part of it, and many more support systems are enabled to that particular startups, which is required because they are just growing. They are raw material, which is required to be moved into a finished good. And we are enabling that particular, and the VCs are not going to spend. Their ticket size starts with at least $10 million funding. Angel fund will, and for a 10 million, your valuation for that startup will not even be $10 million. So it's no point wasting time with the VC. It is always good to identify the market which you are targeting, and based on that particular market, if you focus upon that particular space, that's the best way to take it forward. How do Cognify comes into play? We have partnered with IIT Patna also. We have partnered with regional players, IIT Roorkee. We have a partnership with CIMP, wherein we enable the brand value of that particular startup. We enable the regional support to the talent and nurture the talent to get to the startup. So it's enabling that particular growth from growth to the maturity part. That is how we enable that particular startup. And together we help the business. This is how we, long and short, we help on the business part. This is what I wanted to present for the early stage startups. And I am now pausing for 15 minutes for taking questions on this particular subject.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the audience?
Let me understand the audience. So I understand the faculty members. What is your background? If you can come up and talk about it. What is it you have done in your life? What is you aspire to be in your life? I want to interact. I love to interact with people, and that is why I'm here. So if someone can talk about themselves, what they want to build up, what is it they have the thoughts with, how they want to, what is the career they are looking forward to? Someone from the audience?
Audience, please get up.
You would like to introduce yourself and then talk about yourself and what is it you want to build up. Let me understand if I can be of any help.
Especially second year students for the part of ICC. As a part of ICC, you have an interest in entrepreneurship, right? Please share your thoughts first.
Very good evening, sir. Myself Ajit, and I want to change the Bihar in my point of view. Today we see the Bihar as a we can say that low disposable income state. That means here can do low disposable income state of in Bihar state population. So I want to know that how we increase the Bihar state disposable income. So I have some views on that. First, my first is that we should go for starting some businesses uh, in the field of agriculture. So these should go for a startup like agriculture. So tell me some, like you told before that there are several platforms who are different from their processing system. So what type of processing system to adopt for agriculture type of startups?
Thank you. I will try to address your question, which I have got it. So, if I can define your question, the why, if you think why you want to do is your people around you. The Bihar, which is largely defined by the rural India, wherein people are having a low income group and they have a higher aspirations to grow. Fundamentals is agriculture. They want to increase the disposable income and improve the status of life. It's a huge problem to be solved. Let's take one step at a time. So you have a defined segment, which is a social segment, which is Bihar. What is it? The core of the Bihar is they are very much, this is a very intelligent population, very hardworking population, and a very highly aspiring population. Now, if you are, your question is on account of disposable income, if I got it correct. So the income is not there. The fundamentals is how you can improve upon the ecosystem so that they can generate high income from the fundamentals like agriculture or whatever they are doing on day in, day out. Is it correct?
Yes, sir.
So let's identify the problem statement. If you and the enabling question is that if the touching point is that you want to do for rural Bihar, which is the most important segment, you want to touch the life of the people who are there in Bihar by improving their standards of life. The dependability is that they are low on education, they have low on disposable income, but they are highly aspiring, they are hardworking people. So let's figure out what is the segment which you can touch around. Agriculture is one particular segment which you can touch around. Dairy is another segment which is very close to. And agriculture, if you define, there's a very smarter way to operate in the agriculture. The difficult thing is that the land size of Bihar or that's also agriculture people is also very small. So what they have to do is that they have to come together for the purpose of farming and smartly do something on account of organic farming. And there's a huge way you can demand premium if you are identifying which particular segment you have to farm. If you continue to do what you have been doing as of yet, like rice, paddy, and so on and so forth part of it, you will not yield the result. But if you do it differently, then certainly you can make more money. So one is organic, thereafter something on account of cash crop part of it, fruits, vegetables, and mustards, and so on and so forth part of it. You have got huge land population, you can pick up those things. Dairy is another part of it. There's a lot of schemes from the government of India which can be enabled. Dairy along with the cattle, goats, and hen, whatever poultry. So there's a lot of way to work around those particular things, and government is helping a lot. Even private companies are helping. We have identified a company from Bihar. We have funded quite a few agri-tech startups in India, and they are operating in that part of the world. Sasank Kumar of Dehat is a very dear friend of mine. He is operating from that part of the world. Recently, a company came in from Patna. They wanted to do something in the dairy space. That's a very defined space. But what is important, what I'm trying to say is that if you do it the same way what the people have been doing, it's not going to yield well. But say, for example, if you're talking about dairy along with the blockchain as a technology, if you do it, that's going to be differentiating. Why? Because if I am buying custard or cheese or a dairy product, I would like to know where it is originating from. And people will pay premium for the same thing. If I am getting quality milk and I know this is coming from this part of the ecosystem, this has been breeded by this particular cow, this has been farmed in this particular cattle, this has been cultured over here, and so on and so forth part of it. What I'm trying to say is with the blockchain, you come with the 4T, which is one is the traceability from where it is originating, trackability, that what is the processing process which has been taken care of, tradability, which is ensuring that it is finally traded and you get a value to what you are doing, and the transparency into the entire process. And this applies not only to the dairy part of it, but also to the agriculture part of it. And we have enabled companies who are coming up with the blockchain technology, and they are doing it for the agriculture space and dairy space also. I'm just trying to allude with some examples so that you can relate to it, because simply doing agriculture and simply doing dairy is not going to help unless you are going to look into the value which you're offering at each stage. And you can give that value to the end customer through the technology that this is originating from this. Classic example, what this company is working upon, the name of the company is BWS, based in Kolkata, and they are working for jute, where the jute is highly produced. They are doing it for coffee in Nigeria. They are doing it for honey, which is again in Bengal. But what I'm trying to say is that they are enabling the technology to define that this is something originating from this particular position. So 4T, which I'm talking about, the traceability, where it is originating from, trackability, that it is being tracked through the processing. Each process is where the value addition is happening. Ensuring the tradability, that is finally traded, a value is given to what is it at every level it is adding, and with the complete transparency. So the end buyer is knowing that this is being produced from this particular thing. And you will not believe the buyers are companies like Nestle, Pepsi, H&M, and so on and so forth. As you are struggling to define your market, so are the companies struggling to identify the defined source from where it is originating. Because in the ecosystem, there's a lot of pilferages which is happening, which is given a bad name to the ecosystem. And the technology is foolproofing that whatever you're doing, आप जो भी कर रहे हैं वो सही कर रहे हैं, अच्छा कर रहे हैं, but उसको पॉलिश तरीके से करेंगे और थ्रू टेक्नोलॉजी करेंगे तो उसकी वैल्यू डिफरेंट होगी. यही हम करना चाहते हैं.
Thank you, sir. And another question is also that there any definition of organic organic? Any definition for that? Yeah, I hear some in series lectures that if you want to do any agriculture, organic agriculture, you have to take some like accreditation or something like that. That is definition of organic.
As I told you, you have to define your market.
Yes.
What is your market? You have to define your business model for whom you are producing.
Okay, sir.
Those things will help you to go for the final goal. If you have a clarity of what you are building up, for whom you are building up, you will get all the things. Funding is the easiest thing, I will tell you. Money is the easiest thing. I will tell you, since we started, I don't want to talk more about Cognify because this is not about Cognify, this is about you. You will not believe, we started with 3 founders and now we have 150 individuals. We have people from each industry. You talk about Tata, you talk about Reliance, you talk about Adani. We have individuals from each of the companies who have joined on our platform, and they are voluntarily investing into the portfolios which we are building. Every weekend, every Saturday, we organize a pitch day from some startup or the other. Bottom line is that to come to that stage also, you have to do a lot of homework. Karekeba is, my first investment was with Karekeba. Anubhaji is a very dear friend of mine. Zifi Health is from Patna. I had invested into that Zifi Health as an ecosystem. And we are enabling them to further grow all across Bihar. We have committed almost 300 centers to them, and Indra Jha is working around how to work around the commercial part of it. But the fact remains that if you have a vision, if you have a thought process, there's a way to get to that. And people are all willing to help you to get to that level. हम यही कहना चाहते हैं कि आप लोग खूब मेहनत करिए, खूब सपने देखिए, और अगर आप सपने देखेंगे तो हर सपनों को हमने साकार होते हुए देखा हुआ है। मैं भी आप लोगों की तरह एक साधारण लड़का था और बलिया में पढ़ता था। मैं यहाँ पैदा नहीं हुआ, अमेरिका में पैदा नहीं हुआ। हमारे बाबूजी खेती करते थे। आप लोग की तरह मैं भी इंसान था, किंतु हाँ, मुझे किस्मत ने मौका दिया। मेरे अंकल कलकत्ता में रहते थे, मुझे बुला लिए, मैं वहां सीए किया। चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी करने के बाद कैंपस में मेरा सिलेक्शन हुआ। और एक मजे की बात मैं ऐड जहां जरूर करना चाहूंगा, जब मेरा कैंपस में सिलेक्शन हुआ था, इफ आई कैन हैव 30 मोर सेकंड्स, अमित इज जस्ट, तो मेरा सिलेक्शन 2 कंपनी में हुआ था। एक का नाम था एसीसी सीमेंट और दूसरे का नाम था स्टील अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया लिमिटेड। आप लोग दोनों नाम से परिचित होंगे। उस समय तक हमारे बाबूजी गुजर गए थे। वो हमारे बाबूजी मेरे सीए करने के पहले ही गुजर गए थे, मेरी ग्रेजुएशन के समय गुजर गए थे। तो मेरे अंकल मुझे कलकत्ता लेके चले गए, बोले कि आओ वहाँ पढ़ाई करो, आगे बढ़ो। आई वॉज वेरी फॉर्चुनेट टू दैट एक्सटेंट। Opportunities in government sector like Steel Authority of India Limited was there. It is a Maharatna company. I prefer to go into private sector. I prefer to go with ACC Cement, which was again a Tata company. And I don't repent that particular decision. I never repent. Everyone in the family, to friends, everyone told me that cell or rail की नौकरी कोई नहीं छोड़ता है, सरकारी नौकरी कोई नहीं छोड़ता है। 1995 में सीए क्वालिफाई किया था। जॉब्स वे वेरी रेयर, बट स्टिल आई प्रेफर टू गो विद प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी बिकॉज आई थॉट दैट मेरे को जिंदगी भर एक जगह नौकरी करना इट्स नेक्स्ट टू इम्पॉसिबल। मैं केवल एक बीवी के साथ ही जिंदगी भर रह सकता और किसी के साथ नहीं रह सकता। सो दिस इज लॉन्ग एंड शॉर्ट। आई एनकरेज एवरीवन टू ड्रीम बिग, थिंक बिग, एंड इफ यू कैन ड्रीम, सारे सपने को हमने साकार होकर देखा है। मैं अमेरिका में पैदा नहीं हुआ, मैं अमेरिका का सपना देखता था कि मैं जाके वहां पे बच्चों को पढ़ाऊंगा, अच्छी नौकरी करूंगा। वो सारे सपने मेरे सामने साकार हो। तो आप लोगों को इसकी लिबर्टी है कि जितना बड़ा सपना देखोगे उतना बड़ा सपना साकार हो, बट सपने देखो, थिंक बिग, ड्रीम बिग, you will accomplish it. That's what I would like to say. Thank you very much everyone to giving me this time.
Thank you so much for connecting with us. And it was a wonderful session. We enjoyed it a lot and we learned a lot from you. For the paucity of time, we will not be having the longer session with you, but surely in future we will be having more bigger sessions and insights from you. Once again,
thank you very much.
I thank you for the
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
I invite Nitesh Prakash ji for his session with our students. Over to the team.
Thank you, Prakash ji. Thank you, Ranjan sir, Professor Ranjan. Namaste, everyone. Today, Ganesh Chaturthi, I wanted to start with, invoking Sri Ganesh. So, Om Gam Ganpatiye Namah. Can you allow me screen rights, please, so that I can sharing access?
So, can you transfer the host to Amitesh sir? उनको host transfer करना होगा। So can you transfer the host to Amitesh, sir? Because you are now the host, you have the control.
Okay, I will exit.
Yeah, yeah. Not edit, sir, you can, on the participant list in Amitesh, you can right click and then you can transfer the host to him.
Yeah.
So just at the bottom, click on participants and then.
Yeah. You're the host.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, sir, you may try now.
All right, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to the students of Chandragupta Institute of Management, Patna, and of course interact with the professors as well. So a quick introduction about me. I know there was an introduction already done, but just to tell you, I mean, of my 40 plus years of existence, about 32 years have been spent outside Bihar. And I say that because I presume most of us sitting or attending this are from Bihar. So 80% of my life I've stayed outside Bihar. And that's 16 years of my life in terms of education, studying outside Bihar, and 16 years of my career, corporate career as well. I've had the privilege of coming back. So I've come back to be, closer to my parents. One, I never stayed close to them when I was young, as in I was studying and working. So I kept going farther and farther away from them. I was also outside India. So 16 years of my corporate life, I was outside India. So one is to come back to be able to give back to society. And the second is to do your duty to be closer to your aging parents. So that's why I'm back. And again, thank you so much for your, for choosing me to be part of this discussion. So I wanted to discuss not in terms of much, theory or things, but more in terms of pictures to convey the message that I wanted to convey. So in terms of angel investing, I wanted to start with a thought in the sense that, is angel investing a new thing, or do you think angel investing has been there for quite some time? So now if we go back to, the kings and let's say even queens, because, there's a queen in the UK and UK has ruled most of the modern world. The kings and queens were always patrons. They were never known as angels as such. So the concept of investing into others, whether it's a business or it's an artisan or artist and so on and so forth, has always been there for times immemorial. However, it's only in the context of business, especially in the modern world, that we have a concept of angel investment. Now I'll get to how do we define an angel investor? That's one of the latest slides. But again, let's discuss in terms of pictures. So can anybody identify any of these gentlemen on this slide? Anybody, any of the students? Okay, so it's not about putting you guys in a spot. It's about keeping it interactive. So let me move forward. So the gentleman that you see here is Mike Markella. He is the gentleman who invested in Apple. Angel invested in Apple. So Apple was founded in 1976. And even before Apple had actually formally registered, Mike Markella invested an amount of $92,000 US. And in today's date, inflation adjusted, it's about US $420,000. You can figure out how much of that is in crores. What are the returns that he got in terms of the angel investment? Obviously, it's astronomical. I mean, we can't even fathom how big it is in today's date. And whether he stuck around all along, that's another matter of discussion. But the point is, he supported Apple, and look what we have in terms of what Apple has achieved. And you see to the right, Steve Jobs with the photo of the check that he is holding that was given by Mark Markella. Now, this gentleman is Andy Bechtolsheim. He invested in Google. So Google was founded in 1998, and he invested in 1999. And inflation adjusted, he invested about $100,000, and in current day and age, it's 170,000 US dollars. Again, the returns are astronomical. This gentleman is Peter Thiel, and he invested in Facebook, which is now known as Meta. And again, he invested a huge sum of $500,000, which is currently $775,000. Now, why did I just choose these three companies? The reason for choosing these three companies is obviously there's a common thread of angel investment there, but these are the only $3 trillion companies in the world, except, of course, I've excluded Amazon here and I've excluded Tesla. Now, the reason for excluding Tesla here is because Tesla was not founded by Elon Musk. It was purchased by him, and Amazon has a slightly different story. So Apple at one point was worth $3 million. I think the valuation has come down a bit. Google is 2 trillion and Meta is 1, but these are not current valuations. These were at one point in time. Amazon, I mentioned Amazon, they were not on that slide, but then Jeff Bezos' parents invested $250,000. So that's a big difference because $250,000 is not a small sum of money. But later on, 20 angel investors invested around $50,000 each. And that meant a stake of $981,000 US dollars for a 20% stake. Each of the investors, 20 investors, got a 1% stake. Now, if you talk of India, Kunal Bahel of Snapdeal was the first, or the first startup that got invested was Snapdeal, and Kunal Bahel being the founder. Now, who invested in Snapdeal? Well, again, a Westerner, like it or not. So this is, and this is clear from the Twitter tweets that he has done. So he clearly says, if you see the highlighted portion here to the left, there was no angel investor ecosystem in India in 2007. So obviously the Indian startup scene is very, very new in comparison to the West, where things started in terms of angel investing, so to say, in 1976 with Apple. That's the first known case. I mean, again, I'm not going back to the times immemorial when queens and kings were already doing it. I'm talking about more modern times when the major names, and there's records for that. So again, so who invested? There's a gentleman called Ken Glass, and as Kunal Bahel says, there was no negotiation, no back and forth. We agreed on simple terms, and within a couple of weeks, we had the money that we needed to get our entrepreneurship journey off the starting blocks. And this is to the right. If you see, there's a photo of Kunal Bahel with Ken Glass. This is on Kunal's marriage. So this gives you a decent insight about angel investment in terms of how critical angel investment is. And this is what this slide talks about. That had these angel investors not invested, and again, at the end of the day, it's business, because angel investors expect a profit out or an X returns out of their investment. Fine, but at the end of the day, it's also taking a huge risk. How many people have gotten jobs as a result? So how many families have been positively impacted? So hundreds of thousands of jobs created, hundreds of businesses have blossomed as a result, because Google deals with so many vendors and suppliers and partners. Similarly, Amazon, similarly, Facebook, and so on and so forth. You have Facebook ads, just so many. And in general, society has benefited as a result. So angel investment as a concept is a huge or a very novel concept, in the sense that, if you think of, and why did I pose those questions to you initially? That who are these people? Because see, you would know the founders, you would know Kunal Bahel, you would know, the founders of Google, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, you would know Jeff Bezos, but you would never know the people who angel invested in them. That's very rare, and that's the beauty of angel investment. In a way, yes, you do it for returns, but at the same time, you do it, silently. You don't want to make noise about, that you're investing in this, and then therefore you're doing a, great service to society, or, whichever way you look at it. So you don't tend to brag about it. It's a huge, it's a very novel concept by that logic. Now, who's an angel investor? Now comes a bit of theory. So the term angel investor is defined in the US. It's also defined in the UK and the EU, but it's not yet formally defined or agreed upon in India. So in the US, there's a concept of accredited investor. It's not angel investor, but accredited investor. And Om Prakash ji will know, because he's based in the US, and there's a criteria for that. So you need to have a net worth of $1 million, excluding your primary residence, individually or with spouse or partner, and or have an income of 200,000 individually or 300,000 with spouse or partner in each of the prior 2 years. In the UK and the EU, the term is experienced investors. Again, it's not angel investors, it's experienced investors. This is how they kind of define it, but it's interchangeably used. And the minimum investor for an experienced investor, the minimum investment for an experienced investor who does not fall within, there's certain criteria to it. Because of space constraints, I've not mentioned all of them. So there's about 9 criteria. Is 100,000 euros or its foreign currency equivalent. In India, as I said earlier, there's no formal regulation defining an angel investor. However, there's a definition in the works. And what is that definition? An individual with net tangible assets of at least 2 crores Indian rupees, excluding the value of his or her primary residence. And an individual who has early stage startup investment experience or is a serial entrepreneur or is a senior management professional with at least 10 years of experience. This again is available on the internet, so won't belabor this anymore. Now, again, I also wanted to get into certain basics in terms of, because the subject that we are discussing or talking about today is early stage startups. Again, angel investment and VC investment in early stage startups. And I've spoken more about angel investing, not yet about VC investing or VC funding. But again, who's a startup? We need to know who's a startup first of all. Yeah. So there's a criteria set by DPIIT, and that's based on certain parameters of company age, company type, annual turnover, original entity, and whether it's innovative and scalable. So the period of existence of the company should not be more than 10 years. The company age should not be more than 10 years. If it's more than 10 years, it's not a startup, strictly going by the definition, okay, of DPIIT. Yeah. Excuse me. The company type, one can be a private limited company, a registered partnership firm, or a limited liability partnership, right? So that's the company type. Annual turnover should not be more than 100 crores. If you're exceeding 100 crores, you're not a startup. If it's less than 100 crores, yes, you are a startup. It should be an original entity in the sense that if somebody has an existing company and somebody splits that company and to meet these criteria, let's say, because there's a criteria of 10 years. Let's say a company has been in existence for 11 years. Now it does not meet the criteria straight away. It's no longer a startup. It cannot avail grants or funds by the government by this logic, right? So if they, let's say, be smart and let's say they carve out a new company out of the existing company, that will not be counted by DPIIT as a startup. Similarly, it should be innovative and scalable in the sense that the business model should be such that it can be grown several X times, and also across several geographies. Now, we must discuss, because we're talking about early stage startups, we must discuss what is early stage. How do we define early stage? So a startup life cycle is critical. So usually a startup life cycle is ideation and development. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is then validation. Stage 3 is early traction. And then stage 4 is growth and exit. Now, early stage is usually stage 1 and stage 2. And maybe a bit of stage 3. Let's look at the other slide for more clarity. So if you see and this is linked to the startup financing cycle in the sense that that's what we're talking about. We're talking about angel investing and VC funding. So if you see the box to the left side, on the y-axis you have revenue, on the x-axis you have time, right? So I hope it's visible to all of you. So you see the pre-seed stage, that's right at the axis. at the intersection of the X and the Y axis. And then the seeds fund stage. Now the early stage is from the stages of seed stage to early stage. I mean, both will be defined as early stage. And then who invests during early stages? It's usually friends, family, and fools, as they call it, the 3 Fs. At the same time, you'll have angels investing and maybe micro VCs or some early stage VCs, if at all. I hope that's clear. And just wanted to give you certain examples of early stage VCs. So Bloom Ventures, Waterbridge Ventures, 314 Capital, Avishkar Capital. NAB Ventures is a fund actually. It's not a VC. It's a fund of NABARD. So that's a government entity. Thank you. You can take any questions if you have.
Okay, many thanks, Ankit, for the insights and clarifying all the terminology that we generally use and we don't know the meaning of it. Thank you so much for the insights. Okay, before anybody asks the question, let me ask one question to you. Is there any regulatory authority in India or regulatory body for India for the angel investment?
Any body? No body as such at this point in time. So for alternative investment funds, AIFs, SEBI is regulating that. Yeah. And even the definition as such for angel investors, it is likely that SEBI is going to come up with that definition, like how we have accredited investors in the US.
Right.
You know, similarly, the experienced investors in the UK and EU. Likewise, SEBI is likely to come up with the definition. But at this point in time, or to this point in time, there is no fixed definition as such. There is something in the works, which I already spoke about.
Right. So if somebody wants to be the angel investor, how they should proceed? Is there any repository or how it proceeds?
Yeah, that's a good question in the sense that a lot of people want to be, but they don't know where to start. So, simplistically speaking, when one does not know how to go about things, you ask the people who you expect to know, right? So let's say, for example, you have Karekiba Ventures, who I'm representing. At the same time, Omji, who's from Cognifi. So we are expected to know, and we know. So therefore, you approach them, and they can provide you the platform. So Karekiba Ventures, for example, is an angel investment platform. Yeah, so we have a pool of angel investors. And as Omji himself said, he was one of our early investors in one of these startups that I think the second startup we had on board, Ziffy. And currently we are raising Ziffy's pre-series round, bridge round, as we speak. So the point is, so yeah, you can tag along with such platforms. There's angel investment networks also. India currently has, I would say safely, at least 100, and that's a very, very conservative figure. There's just so many platforms out there. There's angel investment funds also, so you can tag along with them. One great or big advantage you get out of tagging along with them is they do the curation. So if you're new to angel investing, you meaning I don't mean you personally, I mean anybody who's new to angel investing, doesn't know how to go about it. And there's just so many people who can lose money also at the same time, because they just don't know what's the best way. And startups are there. There's just so many startups vying to get money, and they may not be they may not be proper due diligence done. If people don't know how to go about it, they will not know. So the curation done by such platforms is critical, and we pride ourselves in the curation that we do. And we take responsibility in the sense that, look, any investment beyond a certain point is beyond our control. But at least in terms of verifying, doing the due diligence, verifying whether from the MCA and so on and so forth, from the registrar of companies and so on and so forth, and then verifying and validating the business model of the startup, verifying the revenues, because we tend to bring along only revenue stage startups. So if somebody is not, we may still grant an exception for idea stage startups, but that's less likely to happen unless it's a huge exception in a positive way. So yeah, that's largely it. So you tag along with somebody who knows, and their curation has to be very, very good. You know?
And all these platforms are specifically are formed based on the type of the startup they try to help out, like edtech or fintech or edtech, or it is for general like how?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good point. So again, the sector you're talking about, right, Ranjanji? So yeah, that's something that is obviously specific to that angel investment platform or the angel investor as such. So like for example, if I speak of Karekiba, we look for tech startups largely. We are sector agnostic in general, but we look for tech startups. So certain things like even what Omji mentioned. So if you have artificial intelligence, machine learning as your core business function, it could be any business function, could be anything, but at the backbone of it could be AI ML. At the same time, you have Web 3.0 or blockchain, things like that. This really helps. Future tech, uh, enterprise tech, deep tech, whatever, they're largely tech based because see, these are highly scalable. If you, for example, I'll give you an example. So we get calls, right? We get a lot of calls from various startups or entrepreneurs who are looking to, get funded. So I got a call a few days back, and again, a fellow Bihari called up and said that, I've bought 8 bighas of zameen and I'm starting a cooler factory. And I said, wow, man, that's great. You've done.
Same thing actually now.
So I said, but you have to understand what world we are living in. And do you think this is scalable? I mean, if this is what you want to do, great for you. I mean, you've gone, you've reached a certain level of what you wanted to do in your life, which is great for you. But then if you're looking for funding and if you expect people to think the same way as you are in for some surprise in the sense that the world has moved far, far away beyond cooler manufacturing, because you think of Google, you think of, and again, I'm giving the world's best examples, but I said, this is all 20, 24 years, 25 years back. Google came into the picture, and what does Google do? What does Facebook do? 2004, Facebook came. What does Amazon do? 1994, they started, and 1999, 2000, they started becoming famous. So again, this has been there. The way the things have evolved, and the trillion-dollar companies of today's world are all tech-based companies. So if we talk of Fuller, then beyond a certain point, only God can help you.
But I will contradict your point that way because you are the one who has invested in this, that Haji is Achar, right? So Achar is also that out thing.
Well, that's a fair point. See, again, our ethos are that we have to support the people of Bharat. And again, everything is Bharat. India is Bharat. But the way we define Bharat is the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities of India. Then the districts, towns, villages, rural areas where the entrepreneurship ecosystem or the startup ecosystem is largely, not there. So most of the action and the prestige is with the metros and the top 6 or the top 8 cities of India. So beyond that, the startup action is negligible because they don't get the kind of support that they want. So Karekiba is focused on such startups. Now, why are we investing in Jahaji is because one, it's obviously traditional form of stuff, but then it's e-commerce. So the tech bit is there. It's not totally out of tech. Now, again, Kullad can also be that, but then the Kullad has to be special because how many people will be doing Kullad in India? What is that special about that Kullad? Jhaji has a speciality of Mithila kitchens, so the special taste of Mithila. You can't get it from anywhere and it sells. Everybody loves that. It's like Amul. We all know Amul, the Amul story, it's like people from or housewives of, Gujarat who contribute to millions of liters of milk and butter and so on and so forth.
It is a process basically on which you are differentiating.
Sorry, come again.
I said it's a process on which you are actually differentiating in that aspect of business.
Yeah, so there has to be a strong tech element at the end of the day. The product could or service could be anything.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but then the tech element has to be there.
Sure. Okay, that's all from my end. I will hand over now to the audience. If any the questions that you ask, please go ahead. Anybody from the audience? Questions? Please go ahead. Please hand over the mic.
Good evening, sir. This is Om Shivam. My question is related to my friend's question, which is also you can say the follow-up one. We have always seen that angel investors always are interested in some innovative part of business, which we would also call innovative ideas in entrepreneurship. But I want to ask, especially you, that would it be worth if we are copying some business from outside, like other countries like USA? And USA is doing very good in exceptionally good in agricultural innovative ideas, and I want to copy that in our agricultural area, like in Bihar. So would it be worth to do that in order to attract the Indian investors to India, to the country? What's your take on this?
Yeah, so I could not hear the initial part properly, but what I understand is that your question is, if you copy an idea from the US where the idea is successful and you want to, do it in India, will that work? Is that your,
Certainly it is.
and your name is, your name is Om Shivam.
Yeah, Om Shivam.
Right. Thanks, Om, for the question. So, see, I think a similar question was asked, not exactly, but a similar question was asked when Omji was presenting. And somebody had asked, what are the ideas that we should do for Bihar, So it's like, see, I would suggest, you approach it in at least two ways. So if there's a saying that if you do what you love, you will never have to work a day in your life. So first, if you start with what you love to do, what is your calling in life? That's the why you need to answer first of all. If you start that, I mean, I'll come to your question, but addressing something else. So if you start with what's your why, what do you like to do? What's that something that, it's like, even if you're sleeping and somebody says that this is what we're going to discuss or talk or do, you wake up and then it's like, yeah, I don't care about sleep. This is what I want to do. This is my dream. So you start with that. That's one way of doing things. The other way is to see what's working, and what's the need of the hour. So you can look at statistics, where is statistics, and statistics tell you great stories. It gives you great insights. So you look at various statistics. If it's agriculture, you look at, okay, what's missing in Bihar? Is it the yield? How do we, if it's the yield, let's say, how can we improve yield of which produce or which crops? So if sitting in Muzaffarpur, and I'm based in Muzaffarpur, if sitting in Muzaffarpur, I can get the best of lychees, but for that season only, when lychees happen. But if you are in other parts of Bihar and you want lychees, can you get lychees which is being grown in Muzaffarpur? So what's the solution to that? So there is just so many things, you have to think of the problems on a day-to-day basis. You think of the problems that are there, that you face. So think of, it's too hot. So what is the solution? Fan, of course, is already there. Do you need to reinvent the fan, make it better? Ask that question to yourself and think about it, work on it. I'm not saying that's the right, I mean, that's the best problem you need to be solving, but just think about it. So on a day, from daily life, you will get inspirations and problems to solve. So that's one. Now coming to the answer or the question that you asked, specifically in terms of, if something is working in the US, can you adopt it for in the Indian market and then make it? Well, you can possibly, but if you go by what Peter Thiel says in his book 0 to 1, he says, if you copy something, you've not gone from 1 to 2 or 1 to 10 or even 1.5. You're still there. Unless you create an innovation in that, then maybe you go to from 1 to 1.5 maybe, or 1 to 2. But if you create something new altogether, then you go from 0 to 1. And that's the title of this book, his book, 0 to 1. So you need to always think of, where can I do 0 to 1? That's the ideal way. Now, if it's not been done in India, it's been done in the US, it's not been done in India, then you're doing 0 to 1 in India for sure. Not in the world, but in India. So you can think of those ideas, but you'll have to adapt it to the Indian market, the Indian sensitivities, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense?
Certainly, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any last question?
last complete.
I wanted to add to this, if you be authentic and be on the originality part of it rather than copying anything from any part of the world, that would be much appreciated. It will be more differentiative. It will be more original. We always recommend go with your own gut, what you think is very important, rather than copying and replicating. We have to be original. We have to be authentic. People appreciate. मेरे को कोई बिहार वाला मिलता है ना, तो मैं हिंदी और भोजपुरी में बात करना पसंद करता हूँ rather than इंग्लिश, क्योंकि कोई तो मिला जिसे हम रिलेट कर पाते हैं. आप लोग बिलीव नहीं करेंगे, हमारे यहाँ एक एसोसिएशन है, बिहार नॉर्थ अमेरिकन एसोसिएशन, बाना. उसका वीडियो मैं भेजूंगा कुमुद साहब को, वो देखेंगे कितना एक्टिवली हम लोग इन्वॉल्व रहते हैं और एनकरेज करते हैं बिहार का कल्चर को यहाँ इम्बाइब करने के लिए. बहुत जरूरी है अपनी रूट को पकड़े रहना. आप लोग के पास चंद्रगुप्त मौर्य जैसा नाम है, प्लीज एलिवेट दैट एंड यूज इट टू टेक अ माइल्स अपार्ट. डोंट थिंक अबाउट कॉपिंग. It should not be in the mindset even. Think about original. There's a lot of opportunity in Bihar. There is a lot of potential in Bihar. You have to come together, dream about it, what you can make it. You can make the differentiation. Wish you all the best.
Okay, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Abhijit. Proceed with that.
Now we would like to thank them for sparing their precious time and enlightening us with their wise words. May I now request everyone to please arise for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय 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 हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Saif.
Namaste.
Namaskar. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, Singh ji.